I can't say I can hear him, but I can't.
Are we ready to start?
Masses of us.
Good afternoon.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for joining the class once again. And we will start today's our gathering. And so the our starting point is to make sure our intention to join the class is a positive, a constructive intention, which is an important part of this gathering. Important in the sense to train, to habituate ourselves when we engage in any activities, engage with those activities with a positive mind, constructive mind, is a very, very useful and helpful to ourselves as well as to others. And so for that purpose, every time we gathered, always start with saying the refuge lines and the bodhicitta lines. And there are many beautiful, the lines to be recited, but normally that we say those 4 lines. First 2 lines are taking refuge, and the last 2 lines are experiencing or holding the bodhicitta. And our previous gathering, relation to the holding these 2 minds, particularly experiencing the mind taking refuge. I have mentioned several important points that we gradually, built on or develop bit by bit. That is, what's called enhance or, cultivate and further and a deeper understanding of the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. The further, clearer, and deeper understanding of the qualities of the 3 jewels that we have, our taking refuge in 3 jewels will be more profound and what's called better, more helpful. And also I have explained, another important thing is, enhance or cultivate further understanding of our unenlightened nature of unenlightened existence that we have. Though we have this human existence, which has many positive things that we can experience, we can enjoy, and nevertheless, it is not free from, the afflictions such as attachment, aversion, and ignorance, the 3, the roots of the sufferings. And also, the actions or the karmas or the activities of our body, speech, and mind, which are motivated, led by these 3 poisons, So we are not free from those. Therefore, the understanding of this unenlightened nature of unenlightened existence is something important. So enhancing, the further cultivating the understanding of this nature. So those two understanding or realizations are traditionally, classically called, the causes, two main causes that we take refuge in three jewels. In order to have a strong, clear, mind to take refuge in three jewels, these two are the two main causes, and that which I mentioned before. And today I would like to add it a little bit on, how to take refuge. How to take refuge in three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. In the previous one of our gathering, I mentioned taking refuge in Buddha or Buddhas, in the sense, seeing, thinking the Buddha or the Buddhas, awakened beings are our teachers, mentors, and through that, having that kind of mind, then taking refuge in first jewel. And taking refuge in Dharma, in the sense, the cultivating, experiencing, such as, the three trainings like concentration, ethics, and the wisdoms, or further, the cultivating, experiencing noble eightfold paths, which Buddha taught in his first teachings, and or in the further, a little bit elaborate, particularly from the, bodhisattva in the teachings point of view, cultivation, experiencing bodhicitta, and wisdom realizing emptiness. And through that, then, the taking refuge in Dharma that I have mentioned. So that is, and the third, taking refuge in Sangha, that means those Sangha members, whether they are, ordained or not ordained, whether they are, the male or female, whether they are Westerner or Easterner, black or white, regardless of all those surface differences. Whoever have understanding, direct understanding of emptiness or selflessness, then seeing that person or seeing those people or treating those people as our spiritual friends, to learn from them, share from them. So that is one way of taking refuge in three jewels with those first two realizations. And that's what I've mentioned, many of you know, and during this, gathering, I've mentioned some of them. But another way to say take refuge in three jewels, and this is actually what does mean taking refuge in three jewels. So here, taking refuge in Buddha, that means oneself, have a mind, have a determination, have a, the yearning oneself to become a fully awakened being, oneself to become a person who will, teach the Dharma, support all the living beings with that, the fully awakened mind. So, and then that is directly connected, related to the, we all have the seed or the potential, which technically called Buddha nature. We all have that, and that Buddha nature or the seeds to make it real, that means to become fully awakened person. So taking refuge in Buddha, in this sense, oneself to become a Buddha. And that's the, one way of taking refuge in Buddha. And taking refuge in Dharma, here in this sense, oneself to experience the complete cessation of suffering and the origins of suffering. Oneself to experience that complete cessation of those, and oneself to have, the fully enhanced bodhicitta and wisdom realizing emptiness. And that is the meaning of taking refuge in Dharma. And the taking refuge in Sangha, in another way of taking refuge in three jewels, taking refuge in Sangha, that means oneself to become a Sangha member. That means oneself to have, direct realization of selflessness, emptiness, and through that, really to help, to share, to support, the other living beings. So this is another way of, going for refuge in three jewels. And technically, in the classical Buddhist texts, this is called, this manner of taking refuge in three jewels is called a resultant refuge. And the previous one, is called causal refuge. Causal refuge in the sense, those already fully enlightened beings help us, cause us to become fully awakened beings. Those full, already enlightened beings, they, those realizations, cessations, cause us to have, those realizations. And those already Sangha members help us, support us. That means cause us ourselves to become fully, become Sangha member. And that way of taking refuge is called causal refuge. And today's, what I mentioned is taking refuge in the sense resultant refuge. And this one is the actual refuge. When ourselves become fully awakened being, then we got the refuge. When ourselves experience, the complete cessation of suffering and origins of suffering, when ourselves got fully, the developed great compassion and the wisdom realizing emptiness, then the true refuge, actual refuge is, experienced. Then when ourselves to become Sangha, then the actual refuge is, achieved. So therefore, it is good to, as I mentioned, one of our previous, bit by bit, to make the mind taking refuge stronger, deeper, and more profound. Whenever, what kind of lifestyle that we have, successful, rich, famous, everything is very going well, or unsuccessful, facing challenges, difficulties, regardless of all those differences, to able to feel, able to think, very quite spontaneously, quite naturally, able to feel and think the three jewels are my refuge. And my refuge in those two ways, which I've just mentioned. And that is really, really useful, that have that kind of mind. So that is relation to the first two lines, taking refuge in three jewels. Then the experiencing the altruistic awakened mind, holding the bodhicitta. And our reading the King of Prayer really, explain some of those aspirations, some of those prayers are really capturing the bodhisattvas, what you call the aspirations or wishes or yearning, that sort of, being able to serve all living beings in a many different ways. And those are the something bit by bit need to think, contemplate, say the prayer, meditate on, then through that to enhance bodhicitta, which is very, very useful. So now, just to have that kind of brief explanation, we will say the refuge and the bodhicitta lines 3 times together. Sangye chöda soye chonam la chanju pato dane jaso che dagi chen so jive chonam che dola penje sangye choba. Sangye chöda soye chonam la chanju pato dane jaso che dagi chen so jive chonam che dola penje sangye choba sho. Sangye chöda soye chonam la chanju pado dane japso che dage chen so jive chonam je dola penje sangye chobara sho. Oh, yeah. Now we will do a short silent meditation. As you know, this is just to, what you call the, to remind ourselves importance of having our basic states of mind is calm, clear, and able to focus. Having that kind of qualities is very vital to enhance those amazing mental states. So we'll do just 5 minutes silent meditation. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Oh, yeah. So our last week, our reading, I think we completed up to end of verse 20. That is the verse 20, aspiration to be free from defilements. I think we finished up to there. Today we will start from verse 21. So I think last time we started from the maybe we started from verse 13, I'm not sure. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So today we start from verse 21. So here, all these verses so far we have read, and the coming verses that we are going to read, these all are really training ourselves, training our minds to extend our, what you call our, yearning, longing, our vision, that, extending that. Extending in the sense, not just thinking small things, not just thinking myself, not just thinking, my small, community, or my small family, or my small, what you call the country, or not in that way. Sort of thinking, training ourselves, training our minds, and our way of thinking to really to expand towards all living beings. And in terms of the, sometimes thinking that all those enlightened beings, those beings who have, fully cultivated what you call the great compassion and the wisdoms. And also in terms of the time, thinking not just a year, not just thinking a lifetime, not just thinking a few lifetimes, thinking for long, many eons. So it is really what we can see, and overall, or the general sort of trend, what we'll see is very much, our narrow, short-sighted, and narrow-minded, just focusing temporary. That mind, through these saying, praying these verses, that mind to, make sort of, to change, to transform, to think further and more living beings, well-beings, and such. So I think that is really something useful. Although sometimes we may feel, oh, this is not going to happen, or this I'm impossible to do these things, or we may think, oh, it is too much, and let alone to work for all living beings. I can't do, something good things to myself. And these are our, the old habit, our old way of thinking, our old way of, the culturally, socially, and how that we, structured our way of thinking. And looking these verses, really saying to change that. And that is really one of the, what you call the main suggestions, or the, the meanings coming here. Okay, so today, starting from verse 21, and the outline says, aspiration to lead beings to happiness. Happiness. So first I'll read the verse itself in Tibetan. Shingi kyondang chognam jizampar ngesong dunge malu shiwache dewa tawa dowa gojing dowa tamje lane pembarche. So a beautiful verse, saying throughout the rich and range of the entire universe. So Shingi, Shing here translated universe. Kun, it is talking about the extension or the expand of the universe. And as vast as universe, as what you call the as vast as universe. Shingi Kyondam, Chognam Chizamba, Chognam, Chok, talking about direction. Here the range beautifully translated. Chizamba, as like that. I shall pacify completely the suffering of all lower realms. Saying not one unfortunate rebirth, not just two, saying in the unfortunate living beings who are born in unfortunate rebirth, that as vast as universe, as extensive as universe, I want to pacify, their sufferings, their pain, their difficulties. So this word in Tibetan, Shiva here translated pacify or cease or extinguish, extinguish or pacify the sufferings of all those beings who are in unfortunate realms. And then the third line, Dewatala Dowakungujin, I shall lead all beings to happiness. So in Tibetan and Dewa Tagla, that all the happiness, whatever types of happiness just experienced due to having a very pleasant, what you call the breeze when somebody experiencing hot climate, or some kind of sense of the warmth when somebody is experiencing cold climate, or starting from that kind of simple small things, the happiness that living beings would like to experience, then all the way up to the happiness, and that is complete cessation of suffering and the origins of suffering. Shall I lead all beings to happiness? So this is, and work for ultimate benefit of each and every one. So Doa Tamje in Tibetan, Doa, living beings or macurators, Tamje, this is here, each and everyone. So that is again, not saying the small number, not thinking selected, but all living beings, all living creatures. So beautiful verse here. Now then the next verse, verse 22, and the outline says, aspiration to wear the armor of dedication. So here in this verse, really talking about, because in Tibetan, kocha, armor, that is what in English translated, kocha kamba. Why those in the ancient time, even these days, those, we can see what you call because these days there are many demonstrations going on in many big cities. And those right police, they are wearing so many things in their shoulder, in their what called the elbows, in their knees, to protect themselves from a stone or whatever throws by the demonstration. So that's armor. So what here for the bodhisattva, people who train, not only the people who train the bodhisattva in a path, even people who simply what you call the seek the temporary happiness. They have to sacrifice something. Otherwise, it is difficult to experience in even temporary, the happiness, without sacrificing something. With sacrificing, in this case, without wearing certain armor. So people who seek liberation, oneself liberated from suffering and origins of suffering, then he or she has to wear armor that stops, that able to stop some of our old habits, like greed. We have this grasping to sensory pleasures, as Buddha himself said on many occasions, that to practice his teachings, to follow his teachings, we should have a line. We should have a line free from those two extremes. Out of the two extremes, one of the extremes is indulging sense pleasures. So, the two need to wear that kind of armor, not to fall into all the habit. So that, and here particularly when practicing bodhisattva in a path, then we have to wear armor to counteract with our self-centered mind, our egoistic mind, our self-centered mind, which has been with us for long times, and when it demands, when it self-centered mind demands things, and those, then we have to have ability to resist, and that resistance is here talking about wearing armor. So this is what here this verse saying us, the aspiration to wear the armors of dedication. So I'll read the verse in Tibetan first. Changju Choba Yongso Zogjejing, Semjen Taki Jodang Tumbachu, Sambu Choba Tani Rabdunjing, Mao Gaba Kundu Jujujing. So, Changju Choba Yongso Zogjejing, first line, saying, to complete or to perfect it, all the bodhisattva's deeds, all the bodhisattva's deeds, like traditionally counted those 6 deeds: generosity, ethics, patience, the joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. These are traditionally listed, but there are many other activities of the bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas, in the sense, after we are inspired or we have cultivated the altruistic awakened mind, then we need to, and we should work according to that mind, according to the bodhicitta. That means not taking any order from the self-centered mind, really, and that is here, saying, I shall bring enlightened action of perfection. Enlightened actions, in the sense, actions of the bodhisattvas, Changju Choba Yongso Zogjejing, to be completed. I want to complete the bodhisattva's deeds. And bodhisattva's deeds is really serving for the well-beings of all living beings in many different ways, in many different forms, and for long period of time, and that is bodhisattva's deeds. So that is Semjen Thagi, next line 2 in that verse. Serve beings so as to suit their needs. So the Semjen Thagi, Semjen, sentient beings, living beings, Thagi, the plural. Joba means they, here they use, the term is used, serve being as so as to suit their needs. Their needs to really, the living beings who immediately who needs, urgent need is food, shelter, medicine, then being able to serve that. Or their need is a little bit more further than that, like teachings, dharmas, or some other activities, then serve according to their needs. And that is what here, one of the beauties of the teachings of the Buddha, because of that skillful means, even though there might be many profound teachings to be given, but the teachings and the service are given according to the living being's needs, not what is most profound. And that's what here nicely presented in line 2. Teach them to accomplish good actions. Good actions, in the sense, good actions in the sense, in this particularly, bodhisattva's deeds, bodhisattva's activity. Bodhisattva's activities, as I mentioned earlier, activities which are motivated by the altruistic awakened mind. It might be just simple, small things, giving a cup of tea, giving a glass of water, but that deed, that action is done by the altruistic awakened mind, led by that. And that is called, here the term is used, good actions. Good actions. Then the last line captures the title, saying, wear the armor in Tibetan. Maung Kalpa. And this is what, why this verse is called wear the, aspiration to wear the armor. And here in English it says, and continue these activities earlier throughout all the eons to come. So that is, not to saying next year, only until next year, or only this lifetime, or only a few lifetimes, not like that, for eons. And here, wearing the armors particularly from the point of view, the commentator says, time, isn't it? There's no, here saying, as long as it takes to serve, and they're wearing that kind of, cultivating that kind of mental state, that kind of mental strength. And that is what here talking about, wearing the armor. So that is beautiful verse. So some of the commentators, here can be seen saying that wearing the armor in the sense, as long as it takes to complete my bodhisattva deeds. So having that kind of time. And the same Jenji Jobata Tumba, I will work for the sentient beings as varieties, as many as varieties are there, needs are there, I will work. Not saying, oh, it's too much, in that. And also, as long as sentient beings need, the teachings of the Buddha, so time-wise, to complete the bodhisattvas, as long as it takes, I will complete the deeds. As long as it takes to serve the living beings in variety needs, as long as it takes, to teach Dharma, I will continue. So that kind of, the mental attitude, wearing the armor. So then next verse 23, aspiration to accompany other bodhisattvas. So this is very another beautiful verse. This verse really talking about to have oneself to associate with the people, with the beings who have similar aspirations, who have similar yearning, who have similar sort of that kind of long-term what you call the visions, and which is particularly while we are in the training or in the early stage, having that kind of friends or the people surrounding is very, very useful, and that this verse is for that. So I'll read the verse. Dagi chodam tsungpa kangchoba tedadane tato chobasho lödang ngang tangne semki kyang choba tada malam chikdu che choba tada malam chikdu che. So dagi chodam tsungpa kangchoba, dagi me, my deeds, my aspirations, my something had the similar aspirations, something had the similar yearning, similar visions. May I always meet and be accompanied by those whose actions accord with mine, which is, as I just mentioned, which is very helpful, particularly in the early training. While we are, for example, so in Tibetan there is expression. The expression is a nice expression saying, "Kanshi menjirila tenchena te tapchak tamje me." So it's saying, if the mountain or if the hill, the most of the plants are medicine plants, then the surrounding the smell or everything become very medicinal, environment. If the most of the plants in that mountain are poison, then the surrounding and the smell and the effect all become poison. And this is quite often which is mentioned in here, in this kind of situation, particularly in the early training. That doesn't mean to look down people who have bad nature, people who difficult to have it, people who do not have a similar view or aspiration. That doesn't mean look down on them, or that doesn't mean neglect on them. But it is useful for us to associate with those people who have similar aspirations. And in body, speech, and mind as well. May our actions and aspirations always be one. And this particularly, when we're talking about bodhisattvas actions, actions or the deeds or the activities of the body, speech, and mind, which associate with the bodhicitta, then it is something useful to have that. Okay, that is verse 23. Then verse 24, outline 7, aspiration to have virtuous teachers and to please them. So that is one verse. Then, as we all know, having a virtuous teacher, having good mentor, particularly in the earlier training. Although actual, the teacher, actual mentor, actual guru in the what you call the Vajrayana teachings terminology, is within ourselves. Quite often, in the Maitriya's text, Avisamaya Alamkara, ornament of clear realization, talks about what you call the, internal teacher and the external teacher. And the internal teacher really very much refers to our own inner qualities. External teacher, then it refers to those people who help us, who support us, our spiritual journey. So this verse is this. So I'll read the first verse in Tibetan. Dala pambara tobe, debe tobokam. Sangbo joba yongso, joba rabdo demba nam. Tedata takto chebasho. Tedata ki namyam yimeyum. So, the beautiful verse. May I always meet spiritual friends. Dala pambara tobe. So these two verses in English goes together. Who long to be of true help to me. In Tibetan, the first line, Dala pambara tobe tobokam. The friends who have a yearning to help me. Dagla means to me. Pemba, to help, support. Deva, that means have a desire, yearning. Topo, the friends. Nam, all. Sambuchoba rabdu tumbanam. And saying, Sambuchoba rabdu tumbanam. That, what does that mean? Your friend, your spiritual friends. That means who act, who shows, who lives with the what you call the good deeds, sambuchoba, good deeds, good the virtuous activities. To be who long to be of true help to me. True help. I think it has a meaning here. And then anyway. There is a nice verse in one of the Tibetan, what's time? So I'll one of the Tibetan teacher, Kongdang Tebetume, and very short text. It is called Advice to the Students. Student in this case particularly refers to the monastic students who are in the in their study program, and there are many nice verses to that. One verse, particularly in this context, says this: "Dijenshin rachen miyongwe, jeshin pangbe selji zumdene." So this is nice in relation to that. It says this: "Dijenshin those people who who have the what's called the unfortunate nature. Unfortunate in the sense, constantly and continually creating, the non-virtues. Those people who want to approach you, they will not approach you if they want something from you, or if they want to use you or whatever. They will not come with on their head with the horns, and on their bottom with the tails, and in their mouth with the fangs. They will not come in that aspect. They will appear to you, they will approach to you with smiles, chasing, and they really showing they really care to you. And they will approach you in that kind of manner. And he says you must be very careful to those people. And that's very nice one, which quite often quotes in the monastic, the community. Okay, now then the next verse 25. Verse 25 outline, okay, I missed one important. The previous verse 24, and in English saying, and whom teach me good actions. Then the next line saying, never will I disappoint them. It is not mentioned that. The first line. Oh, I think the first line. May I always need, and that is what in Tibetan in the third line. May I sort of all the time accompany or encounter with those spiritual teachers who have those amazing, natures, and never disappoint. I never, disappoint them in the sense, to do something, the teachings that they have given, like in this case, cultivation of bodhicitta, engaging in 6 perfections, which they taught, and to do opposite to those, then that's what the meaning of never will I disappoint them. So then the next outline 8, aspiration to see the Buddha and serve them in person. To see Buddha, and here when we talk about the Buddha, then we can talk about historical Buddha in this case, in certain extents. The historical Buddha in this case, the Gautama Buddha, he is already came to this this planet more than 2,500 years ago, and he is already gone. So seeing Buddha is not really literally not talking about what we normally say, I saw, my what you call the pop singer. One thing which I remember in my early time in London, and I think Robin might be there. I can't remember anyway. Steve was there, and we were in the Finsbury Park, and so they took me to in Hyde Park in one very hot summer, and that might be the first summer or second summer in London, and there is a big concert taking place, and there were thousands of people. I don't know how much it cost the ticket. I'm sure it cost a lot. and but there's no seat. All are standing, and and so they all want to see that those popular singers, and that was that might be my first time really going into that kind of big concert, and that might be my last. I mean, my last going to is with His Holiness Dalai Lama in Glastonbury in 2011 or 2012 or 13, and so so I'll express. I will share with you my suffering during that evening concert in Hyde Park. First of all, suffering was standing hours and hours and hours, and my legs are aching. Secondly, the noise, not just the noise from the speakers, but also the people. And the third is, because it is very hot and drink lots of water, now need to go to pee. And where I'm going to go? So, when you say here, seeing the Buddha is not in that fashion. So anyway, so I'll read the Tibetan first, that verse 25. Sanje seji korwe gombonam, musum tatu tage jawata, mao keba kundu mijowa, tedawaya choba jachiji. A beautiful verse. So Sanje seji korwe gombonam, musum tatu tage jawata, saying that may I see all the time, directly to see those Buddhas, those victorious ones, those Buddhas, surrounded by all the, what you call the, sons and daughters of their followers. Here it said, may I always behold the Buddhas here before my eyes, and around them all their bodhisattvas, sons and daughters. So, tremendously sort of nice to imagine like that, to train ourselves to have that kind of view, that kind of vision, to see the Buddhas surrounded by all the bodhisattvas. Without ever tiring throughout all the eons of time. So that's what I was morning saying, just for a few hours in Hyde Park, I was completely exhausted. And I learned the lessons. Then in the future, don't go to those big concerts. So anyway, so here it says, that without ever tiring, you have no exhaustion. It said you have tremendous sense of, aspiration, yearning to like that. Throughout all eons to come. May then the next one is offering. May the offerings make them be endless and vast. So holding that kind of, the vision, holding that kind of mind, which is beautiful. Now the next verse 26, outline 9, aspiration to keep Dharma thriving. Dharma thriving, here in Tibetan, Chö Zimba, Guba Tambe Chö Zimba. In thriving, not necessarily in the sense so many temples are built, so many, what called the monks and nuns are there, or so many statues are built, or so many, the gatherings are happening. Of course, these are external, what you call the external aspects of what we call the Dharma activities. Thriving in the sense here internally. People really live their lives. People really live their lives according to the Dharma teachings. People who really live their life according to those three trainings: concentration, ethics, and the wisdom, or the Noble Eightfold Paths: right action, right speech, right livelihood, like that. And that is what here in English translated Dharma thriving. In Tibetan it says Chö Tambe Chö Zimba. Tambe Chö means Dharma. Zimba, literally it means hold the Dharma. Holding the Dharma in the sense, living one's own actions of the body, speech, and mind, living according to the Dharma. And that is the meaning of holding the Dharma or thriving, keep the Dharma thriving. So then I'll read the verse in Tibetan, Jawanam ki tambe chö zinjing, chanju choba kundo nangwache, sambo choba nambar choba yang, maung kyaba kundo choba ki. Beautiful. Jawanam ki tambe chö zinjing. May I maintain the sacred teachings of the Buddhas. Maintain, which I just mentioned. Maintain. The teachings, when we talk about the Dharma or the teachings in English, what is his name? Vasubandhu, one of the great Indian master, I think 4th or 5th century, great master called Vasubandhu. At the end of his beautiful, this text called Abhidhammakosha, the treasure of knowledge, Abhidhammakosha, which has 8 chapters. And if we added the auto commentary, then it has 9 chapters. So the actual text itself has 8 chapters. And at the end of the 8th chapter, there are 2 verses. And within those 2 verses, first verse is very much relevant to here. Dönbe tamche namnide, longdang tobe dangnido. Tenzin cheba ma cheba, duba cheba konayin. So those 4 lines, very, very beautiful. So it says, Dönbe tamche namnide. Dönba, literally it means Buddha. The teachings of the Buddha are the twofolds. Dönbe tamche namnide. What are those twofolds? Longdang tobe dangnido. The oral teachings and the teachings which in those realizations, long oral, longda tokpa realization. So the Buddha's teachings can be folded into those 2, oral teachings and actual, internal realization. So how to hold or how to thrive in this case, how to hold the Buddha's oral teaching. Buddha's oral teaching is held through Zimba, memorizing, verbally teaching, writing, reading. Through that, you can hold the Buddha's oral teaching. Hold in the sense not to decline. Then Duba Cheba Konayin, the other one, the Buddha's, the old Buddha's teachings as an inner realization, that is through, the practice, in the sense enhancing, cultivating, the realizing the bodhicitta, the altruistic awakened mind, so on and so forth. And that's the only way These are the only way to hold the teachings of the Buddha. Oral teachings is held through reading, writing, listening, teaching, memorizing that, and realization is through enhancing, cultivating, and so forth. And that's what here, this verse 26 is also in relation to that. May I maintain the secret teachings of the Buddhas. So maintain in that sense, those two ways. And cause enlightened actions to appear. Enlightened actions to appear in the sense, our activities of the, our daily activities, our routine activities, be the, according to the teachings of the Buddha, appear in that sense. Sangbochoba number Jongwayang, may I train the perfection of good actions, to train ourselves according, those bodhisattvas actions, deeds, and practice these in every age to come. Every age to come in the sense as, for long time to train in the bodhisattva's deeds. Okay. So that is the verse 26. Now verse 27, the outline 10. Aspiration to acquire inexhaustible treasure. Inexhaustible treasure. Sajuchupa, Mesebe Jotoba member. Gavon. Seba Chikto Mas Devakam Sebe Devakam Sonum the Ishiji Tong. So treasure here, inexhaustible treasure, referring to those two, quite often translated as saying two accumulations, or two merits. Two merits or two accumulations. In other words, the on the one, those activities of the bodhicitta, like the sixth perfection and so on and so forth, and the other one is through the wisdom, such as wisdom realizing emptiness. So treasure, inexhaustible treasure, in the sense to have these two sometimes called two, what you call the skillful means and the wisdom, skillful, tapdam, sherab. And these two, treasure that we have and that we should have. And inexhaustible in the sense, these two, the skillful means to serve living beings, be within us like a, endless. And that's what here, this verse, I will read in Tibetan. Siva tamje tuyang korwana, sonami shetane meseni. Tabdan sharab tinsin namtaratang, yundengungi mese zogyuchi. So, it says, Siva tamje tuyang korwana. Here it says, samsaric existence. As I wander through all states of samsaric existence, may I gather inexhaustible merit and the wisdom. So this is what's saying, while we are in an unenlightened state, may to really to gather, to have the skillful means to serve living beings and the wisdoms to serve living beings. And that's what here, these first two verses. And the next, and so become an inexhaustible treasury of noble qualities, and then in Tibetan, of skills discernment, samadhi, and liberation, which is in the Tibetan in the third line. Tap, that's skill. Sherab, that is a discernment or the wisdom. And Tingzin, that's samadhi. And Namdar, that is liberation. So, in other words, to serve living beings, countless living beings for eons and eons, to have these treasure, to have these, the tools, and not just ones or not just few, but inexhaustible. And that is this meaning of this verse. Making that kind of aspiration, having that kind of yearning. Oh yeah. So then what's happening? Okay. Now we will leave it here. So that means we finished up to verse 27, outline, end of the outline 10. Outline 10, we finished here. So now this, I will leave it here. And this is our last gathering in this, I think, is it right? Am I right? Yeah. So this is our last gathering in this term. And I will see you in New Year time. And we will continue reading this beautiful text. And so until that, so many things going to happen. And I'm sure all are looking forward to have Christmas, although it may not be the normal Christmas family gathering, but nevertheless, for the Christian calendar, it is very important sort of event or the occasion, which I would like to, verbally and or through my imagination, I would like to say all of you to have a very, very nice Christmas and also New Year. And all your family, whether with you or far a different place, also have a good Christmas. And so that is the time how it's passing. Our time is passing very, very quickly, without. So anyway, that is I want to say sincerely from my heart to have a good Christmas and Happy New Year. Then I will, Peter and Tree will announce our next what's called term when we start, and we will continue this. Okay. So thank you. We will say now prayers to 21 Tara, and then the dedication. Om Je Tse Ma Pama Droma La Cha Tse Lo Cha Tse Droma Nyuma Pama Chene Ke Je Lo Dan Dama Je Den Sum Gun Che Ge She Ge Kesa Je Wa Le Ne Chong Cha Tse Dong Ge Da Wa Gun Do Kan Wa Je Ne Tse Be She Ma Kama Tonda Tsoba Namanje Rabdo Chewe Rambarama Chanze Semu Chune Jeje Peme Chane Nabara Jema Jemba Zundu Kado Shewa Shaba Samde Junyema Chanze Teshin Shebe Zodon Taye Nambara Jawa Jema Malu Paru Jemba To Jawe Seji Shindo Dema Chanze Tota Rahum Yege Dudan Chodan Namga Kama Jide Tombo Shabdi Nende Luba Meba Guba Numa Chanze Jaje Mela Tsamba
Nola nazo wanju chema, chombo rola tisa namada, nujun soje dune tema, chanze teje chatang peje, paru chogo rapto choma, ego yenda shabye nende, meba choba shindo parama, chanze dure jikpa chenpo, duje pao nambara choma, Chöge shene chonye tenze, dawo tamje malu sema, chanze kunjo somze chaje, seme toga nambara gema, malu choje kolo jembe, rangi weje tsonama chema, chanze rakdo kawa jebe, ujin weje tenwa bema, sheba rapshe tudara, De dan jing den wang du zema, chang ze sa shi gyong we cho na, tam je gu ba nu ma nye ma, chong nye ye wa yi ge hong ge, pong ba tam je nang pa ra zhe ma, chang ze da we dong bu wo ge, dian ba tam je shin du pa ra ma, le be chen ne we ba me le, da pa ra shin du we ra wan che ma, Changze kebe tama me ta, barwe chengwe une ne ma, e jang yungu mo kune koro ke, daye pungne nambara choma, changze sashi ngola chage, tenji nujin shakye toma, chonye jenze ike honge, rinpa dunpo namni kema, changze tenma kema shema, Nyāngen dēshīn chū nyēma, sōwa omdā yāntā tēmbē, tīkbā chēmbō jōmbā nyēma, chāngzē kūne kōrwa kāwē, dāyē lūne nāmbara kēma, īgē chūbē ngāne kōbē, rīkbā hōnglē jōmbā nyēma, chāngzē tūrē shāmne dābē, hōnggē nāmbē sābē nyēma, Rira menta ratang beche, jikden sumna yowa nyema, changze lai tsoi nabe, rita dajen chana nama, tara nyeju peje yege, duna malu pani sema, changze lai tsonama jebo, lada miam ji dema, gune goja kawa jeje, Zedang melama ngenpa sema, changze nima dawa jebe, chinye pola urawa sema, hara niju tuda rai, shindu tabu rimne sema, changze tingi sumnam gobe, shive tuda yanta tema, dudang rona nijun sona, jomba dure rapcho nyema, 자외 ngādi dēpa dētāng, chāngzē wāne nīshū cāngzē. Oh yeah, dedication. Gewa de jiwo gen, shenama yishe causal shen, shenama yishe le zhong wei, tamba gunyi tobara sho. Changju semjo rinpo che, ma je panama je juro che, Jeba nyamba meba yang, kone kongdu pewara sho. Kare rave korwe shinkande, penda dewa malu jongwe ne, chenre sewa tenzen janso ye, shabe sede pato tenjoro che. Oh yeah,
thank you very much to everybody. And as I just mentioned earlier, I hope this pandemic is quickly overcome by having now soon going to get vaccine or many different ways. And next year, hopefully we'll have a, more secure environment and a little bit to come back normal life. And also I would like to say thank you to people, who support me in many different ways. This is, I'm not saying this because, encouraging you to continue. This is not my motivation, but my main here intention, motivation. I have no other way to say thank you to you, because writing email, first of all, I don't have all your emails. Secondly, I'm very, very bad to communicate, and all these ways, I don't have any way to express, my sort of gratitude, your support. And so this is the only way to express, or only place I can express my gratitude to your support, in many different ways. Thank you. And have a happy Christmas.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you for really lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything, Rinpoche.
Very, very beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy life.
Thank you. Geshe-la can say something. Geshe-la. Geshe-la.
See you soon.
We're going to India. Geshe-la, Susan and I are going to India to Sakya Monlam to see His Holiness Sakya Chinzen. And Geshe-la, we have Sakya Meditation Center in Southwick, Brighton. And Geshe-la, will you come and teach, please, here in Brighton or by Zoom? Please. Thank you.
Okay, India.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Geshe-la. Geshe-la. Geshe-la.
All right, everybody.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy everything.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
I will see you in the New Year time.
In the new year.